Good evening. My name is Mamie Eng. I'm the director of the Henry Waldinger Library in Valley Stream, New York. Welcome to the 8th in our series of Zoom concerts in 2021. It's dedicated in the memory of Emily and Nathaniel Lehrman, presented by the library, and it's featuring soprano Helene Williams and pianist-composer Leonard Lehrman, the co-founders of the Court Street Music here in Valley Stream, and violist Daniel Heyman, who is not on screen right now. These programs are made possible with funds granted to the Professor Edgar H. Lehrman Memorial Foundation from the Decentralization Program, a re-grant program of the New York State Council of the Arts, with the support of Governor Kathy Hochul and the New York State Legislature. And it's administered by the Huntington Arts Council. I have put the overview in your chat so you can see, and then you will be able to watch the pre-recorded music of the concert at that link. This concert is devoted to Russia. And now here to introduce the program is Dr. Leonard Lehrman.
Thank you, Mamie Eng, for co-sponsoring us today and all of our house concerts this year, taking place monthly on Tuesdays at 5. My wife, Helene Williams, and I have lived in Valley Stream 22 years. Today is our 667th concert together, our 9th Valley Stream Library performance, each of those with our dear friend and colleague, Dan Hyman, who is driving home now from teaching and will be joining us on camera later. He's just on the audio at the moment. October is a month celebrated nationally in Germany with Oktoberfest, in Russia commemorating the October Revolution, which actually took place in November 1917, and in the Italian-American community centering around Columbus Day, which in many places is now Indigenous Peoples Day, although not in New York yet. Our 2022 concert calendar plans to celebrate Oktoberfest and Germany next October, and Russia again next November. But this year we're concentrating on Russia and a little bit of Italian Americana in anticipation of a larger series of events later this month, specifically Hofstra's presentation of a retrospective preview of the Blitzstein-Lehrman opera Sacco and Vanzetti, October 19th and 21st. The first, Russia, including White Russia or Belarus, where a large majority of people speak Russian as their native tongue and never particularly favored the separateness of the two countries that now exists. Both my father's and my mother's families originally came from Belarus, Lepel and Babruisk, to be specific. Helene and I visited those towns in 2016. My mother grew up in Leningrad before emigrating to Boston at age 12 in 1935. And it was in Leningrad in October 1971, exactly 50 years ago, that I first met a friend of my mentor, Elie Siegmeister, the composer, pianist, teacher, Sergei Mikhailovich Slonimsky. We have one of his former students with us, or we will, Natalia Medvedovskaya, whose music we'll also be hearing later in the program. And I'm hoping that she'll say a few words about studying with Slonimsky when she arrives. We also have with us, logging in from St. Petersburg, where it's quite late now, my third cousin, our great-grandmothers were sisters, Victor Shapiro. Добрый вечер. Hello, Victor.
Добрый вечер. Hello. Hello.
It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. Yes.
Victor helped us communicate with Slonimsky 5 years ago. I can make myself understood pretty well in Russian, but I often have trouble comprehending it at the speed it's usually spoken.
But Leonard, your Russian was good enough to understand Slonimsky, and he understood you very well, of course. Yes.
Yes, he understood me, but I sometimes had trouble
bit.
understanding him, and you were the one that helped, which was so very, very invaluable and helpful to us. On July 4th, 2016, Helene and I visited Sergei Mikhailovich at the St. Petersburg Conservatory and then returned there in October to attend the premiere of his masterpiece, Korol Lear, an opera based on Boris Pasternak's translation of Shakespeare's King Lear. I was so taken with the piece, I spent several months as a labor of love translating the libretto back into English in the hope that some company would want to someday to produce it here, the way the Bel Canto Opera Company presented my mother's and my translation of the first Russian opera, Glinka's The Life of the Tsar. I have a program from that. It's from 1979. And Queens College, thanks to Joel Mandelbaum, who will be joining us in about an hour, presented our version of Dargomishki's Rusalka in 2015 with Helene in the title role. And that was in memory of my mother, who co-translated it with me. Now at church, I often play the 24 preludes and fugues of Bach, sometimes of Shostakovich, and since 2016 of Slonimsky. And we're going to start our concert with his prelude number 1 in C major. So that was the Slonimsky first prelude. The first of our 2 trips to Russia and Belarus in 2016 climaxed in a series of recording sessions with the State Symphony of St. Petersburg of music by myself and Joel Mandelbaum, which Parma Records issued on the Ravello label. This is what the cover looks like. The first vocal piece on that CD is an a cappella setting of a poem by Alexander Blok, which I wrote in 1977 in memory of a colleague at Cornell, Paul Gottschalk, to be sung in Russian or in English. We're going to hear Helene singing it in each language, both times at events in memory of my mother, first at Court Street Music in Valley Stream on the 2nd anniversary of her death, January 13th, 2017 in English, and then at the Makor Russian Jewish Center in Boston, November 12th, 2018. I think the director of that is here, Boris Zaretsky. So we'll hear those 2 versions of the benediction, first in English and then in Russian.
On all that's past, a benediction, a better fate I have not sought. Oh, heart, you've loved with such conviction. Oh, mind, how glowing what you've wrought. Both joy and pain so abating, their trace have left at no small cost. Yet both in passion and in waiting, the light that's past has not been lost.
Now another piece by a professor at the Petersburg Conservatory, Alexander Glazunov, his elegy for viola and piano, written in 1893, and probably in memory of Tchaikovsky or Rubinstein, or both composers who died the previous year. We're grateful to Eleanor Gould, in whose library we found this and several other lovely pieces for viola. Now, I feel a special connection to Glazunov because he was part of a tradition of Russian composers completing works left unfinished by their colleagues. One of the great pieces of Russian symphonic literature, the overture to Alexander Borodin's opera, Prince Igor, was actually written by Glazunov, based on his memories of the improvisations of Borodin, whose primary occupation as a chemist kept him so busy he never had time to write down the overture before he died in 1887, age 44, when Glazunov was only 22. Last year, I took a page from history and wrote the overture to the operetta Damn That Apple, with music by Lutz Meyer, and played it for him just months before he died of Alzheimer's. And that's a subject for another time. Before we play the elegy for viola and piano of Glazunov, I was looking for a photograph of him with Borodin, and the only thing I could find was this. This is a very interesting photograph of Belayev, the publisher, and the composers Rimsky-Korsakov, Glazunov, Lyadov, and on the side Borodin, who were commissioned by Belayev to write 4 movements of a string quartet. This is quite an interesting picture. You've got Belayev on one side and Borodin on the other, and Glazunov is in the middle. And I haven't heard this quartet, but I'm now very intrigued to hear it. But this is one of the great Russian pieces for viola and piano, Alexander Glazunov's Elegy, Opus 44. Boris, Mazel Tov.
Hello.
Здравствуйте. Hello.
Hello, здравствуйте.
We're going to hear a very popular Russian song written during World War II, sung by a former student and daughter of a neighbor of ours here in Valley Stream. And that's you, Boris Mazel Tov. That was a long time no
Very
see.
nice. Thank you for inviting and thank you for sharing that video. Appreciate it very much.
We love it. Is Katie available? Could she join us? Or she's busy now, I guess.
Unfortunately, she's at work. She's working.
She's working. Okay, well, you'll tell her about it. And Helene, do you want to say something about Katie?
Yeah, it was a lot of voice. She was my voice student when she was in high school, preparing for NISMA. It was a real pleasure to teach her, especially since she was intelligent and could also play the piano and read music.
It was a pleasure to accompany her, especially in her native Russian. And Boris, Boris, you call yourself Boris in America, I guess it's Boris in Russia.
Yes.
He was absolutely invaluable, helping us to make contact and to communicate with folks who hosted our concerts in Minsk, Babruysk, and Vitebsk in June 2016. Now, so this video of Katie singing at our annual Court Street Music House concert, June 12th, 2011, has been viewed over 2,000 times since then, all over the planet. It's one of the most viewed of any of our over 4,000 YouTube videos, which recently passed the 1 million mark in number of viewers. The song is about a young woman singing and saving all the letters from her beloved who's guarding the border, protecting the motherland. Her name is Katyusha, a diminutive of Yekaterina or Katya in English, Katie. So of course it was fitting to have Katie Mazel Tov sing this. I should mention that Katyusha was the nickname given to the portable rocket launcher invented by the Soviets, which proved very useful and apparently still has been used fairly recently in Iraq and Afghanistan. For this concert, today, I wrote a new singing translation of the song in English, and it's subtitled in the video of Katie singing bilingually. Let's enjoy that now.
Пусть он землю бережет родную, а любовь
Катюша сбережет. Расцветали яблони и груши, поплыли туманы над рекой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег, на крутой. Выходила на берег Катюша, на высокий берег, на крутой.
With the exception of the Bach family, I don't think there has been a more prolific and talented family of musicians than that of the Cherepnins, beginning with Nikolai, then his son Alexander, and then his grandson Ivan. I have pictures of them here. This is Nikolai, and this is Alexander. And Ivan, actually, I don't have a picture. I just had a caricature that wasn't terribly appropriate. But Ivan was I had a special connection with all of them. Ivan was a junior faculty mentor when I was a student at Harvard, and he steered me to Gottfried Michael Koenig in Utrecht, Holland, where I briefly studied Ivan's specialty, electronic music, before going on to the Conservatoire at Fontainebleau, also known as the Boulangerie with Nadia Boulanger. Now, I studied Nikolai's work as part of a course I took in Russian music at Cornell, and discovered that he and Vissarion Shibalin had each completed Modest Mussorgsky's unfinished opera based on Gogol, Sorochinsky Fair, each in a different way. Shibalin composed freely in Mussorgsky's style based on sketches left for that work, whereas Cherepnin carefully researched other unfinished Mussorgsky works and incorporated, recycled, and developed them, creating a tapestry that glittered with one jewel after another. I understand it was the Shibalin, not the Cherepnin, which Bronx Opera chose to use in their only production of a Russian opera to date, though I hope there'll be more. Also at Cornell, I wrote a translation of another opera by Mussorgsky based on Gogol, Zhenitsa, translated as The Marriage or Getting Married. Although the play is in 3 acts in prose, Mussorgsky had set only the first act as a kind of experiment preparing for Boris Godunov, which is also set in prose, mostly by Pushkin. My translation was presented as Reader's Theater melodrama in class, with me at the piano and a cast that included slavicist George Gibeon, musicologist William Austin, and Laurel Fay, who became a biographer of Shostakovich and an expert on Russian music. Less than a month after I finished my doctorate at Cornell and began work as assistant chorus master at the Met in the summer of 1977, I received a call and then a visit from a neighbor on Manhattan's West 73rd Street, whom William Austin had recommended contact me. It was the 78-year-old Alexander Cherepnin and his wife, Ming. They had heard from Austin that I had written a singing and English translation of Zhenitsa and came over to plead with me to translate the rest of the work which Alexander Cherepnin had completed. That is, he explained to me, he had not set both acts 2 and 3 of the Gogol, as he wanted the work to be at least half by Mussorgsky. So he had amalgamated those 2 acts into one. He gave me the score, along with another original opera of his, Ol, based on a play by Leonid Andreev. I promised him I would study what he gave me and translate what I could. Then he died in Paris a month later. My mother actually went through and sketched out a literal translation for me to work with in terms of getting it to go with the music, which I promise I will do someday, especially if there's a production looming. I know the work is very good, as there's a fine German translation of it, which I saw performed in Oberhausen in the 1980s. Now, meanwhile, Elena Mindlina did a marvelous recording of Nikolai's songs. That's this recording. Is Elena with us? She was going to try to drop in, but she's celebrating her mother's birthday today, so I don't know if she's able to. But she put me in touch with the Cherepnin Society, who sent me 8 CDs. This is just the first one. I have all 8 of them, of Alexander's piano work, among them several pieces I love, especially this one that I'm going to play for you, called Prayer. And with us today, I'm honored and delighted to say, is Benjamin Folkman, president of the Society. And I've asked him to say a few words about the Society and about Cherepnin and about this piece. Hello.
Thank you, Leonard. Given the family composing vocation, it's ironic that in Alexander Cherepnin's boyhood, his father, Nikolai Cherepnin, did not want him to be a musician or composer, but hoped he'd be a gentleman farmer. Out of Chekhov, you might say. The boy himself, though, began composing before his teens, and by age 13, without any help from his father, but teaching himself, he was writing the first versions of piano pieces that he later published, and he was that good. He had a seemingly inborn flair for catchy melody and pithy forms. Nikolai always said that Alexander was a composer by the grace of God. And I think he feared that if he tried to meddle with this extraordinary talent, he could only spoil things. So he let Chapman find his own way. So Alexander brought some 200 of these early pieces with him when he came west at age 22. And in Paris, his piano teacher, Isidore Philippe, arranged for dozens of them to reach print in collections like Bagatelles, Opus 5, Pièces sans titre, Opus 7, Petite Suite, Opus 6, Feuille Libre, Opus 10, and elsewhere. One that was never published was the prayer, which we'll hear presently. Alexander wrote it at age 16 and later penned it into a group of 5 pieces. The other 4 were all eventually published. As for prayer, Chapman may have concluded that its unabashed Sturm und Drang intensity was a bit much. But it's a quality that we can now be charmed by, since the battle between modernism and late romanticism has been over for so long. And as in so many of these early pieces, there's a fascinating experimental detail. When the opening G-sharp minor theme returns, Chapman unconventionally avoids bringing it back in the original key, but instead transposes it up a 7th to F-sharp minor, composer by the grace of God indeed. The Chapman Society made the manuscript of prayer available to the pianist Giorgio Calcol for his recording of the composer's complete piano music. And Leonard, you are only the second pianist to perform it. So I turn matters back over to you.
Only not in here. Thank you. The phone is ringing and can't be found, so.
Of course,
So before we go on to this piece, I just want to say that it's a choreographically a very potentially beautiful piece, and we have a wonderful choreographer with us today, Beth Jacoby, who I'll be speaking about later. We're doing a whole program devoted to the music of revolution and Russia in May, and this is a piece that I hope she's listening to or will listen to. So let's now play the Alexander Cheretnin prayer, as Benjamin Folkman just said, only the second recording ever made. Thank you. So composing music that goes with words, or words that go with music, has been a major preoccupation of mine since at least the age of 8. And translation is often a part of the process, from French, German, Yiddish, Hebrew, Ladino, most recently Romanian, but especially Russian. In high school, I wrote and published a singing English translation of the Yevtushenko Komissarzhevsky song, "Хотят ли русские войны?" Do the Russians long for war? And in college at Harvard, I found a Mayakovsky poem that expressed the anger I felt at so many colleagues' elitist placidity about the war that was killing so many Americans and even more Vietnamese. Then in graduate school at Cornell, I took a course in Russian poetry and found 3 poems with aviary images, which I made into a short cycle called Songs of Birds. They were premiered at Steinway Hall in Manhattan in 1979 in English by Louis Volavka, a Met star who now teaches in Indiana, and later by Helene and baritone Alexander Mikhailyov in Russian. Then in 1985 in Berlin, I was invited to set to music a poem by Velimir Khziernikov, a symbolist whom Roman Jakobson, my mother's teacher at Columbia, called the greatest world poet of his time. Finally, to complete the group, I composed an 8th Russian song to a poem by our Belarusian friend in Queens, who is sung with our chorus and who's with us today, Galina Leibovich. Hello, Galina. Are you still there? And can you say hello? Can you unmute?
Yes, and turn your video on also, please. I think, do I have to ask you to do that? I'm sorry, folks, I reset everything.
Galina, we can
Hello,
hear you.
Hello, thank you so much.
Oh, there you are.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me and for including that that piece. I'm honored.
Well, it was so wonderful having you with us when we did Rosalka and all these Russian things, and then and we also stayed in an apartment in Petersburg that your uncle helped us find, and you were absolutely a treasure. It's wonderful to see you again, and it was great to have this little poem of yours to round out the 8 that I set as Russian songs that were done on this recording. I made a suite of them for violin and piano. And we're doing 6 of them today. Actually, Helene sang the first one, the benediction, and yours is the last one. And we're leaving out the Pushkin because we're going to put that on our winter concert. So you'll hear the six pieces for violin and piano, and I put subtitles on in English and Russian, including your poem at the end in both languages. I wanted to say one other thing that Galina did for us that I will always treasure, and I would just want to thank you again for it. There was a film, The Girl from Leningrad, which was made in Russia in 1941, and my father saw in January of 42, and in February he was introduced to a woman who was working for Russian war relief. They called her the Girl from Leningrad. He fell in love with her immediately, and my mother, whom he married 2 years later. So I always wanted to see this film, The Girl from Leningrad, and we found a version of it in Russian without any subtitles. So my father and I watched it, and I could translate about a third of it, I think. But Galina, you stood there, sat there with us and helped us understand and translate the rest of us. And we were both so grateful to you, as we will be forever. So, okay.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Just Sunday, we unveiled the stone for my father, who passed away at the age of 96 last year. So this is, and this whole concert series is in memory of my parents. So, and you're a very important part of that life, Galina. Thank you so much. Okay, let's screen share the 6 pieces for violin and piano based on Russian songs.